11:47 p.m. That's when my phone rang. Not a text. Not a courtesy message. A call. I almost didn't answer. But something in my chest tightened before I even saw the name. Victoria. My stepmother never calls late unless she wants something. Picked up. "We're moving in tomorrow," she said brightly, like she was announcing a brunch reservation. "Your dad said it's fine." I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "The beach house, Bonnie. It'll be easier for everyone if we just stay there for a while. Paige loves the master bedroom, by the way. The light in there is perfect." "The master bedroom? My bedroom?" Silence stretched across the line. Then she added almost casually, "If you don't like it, you can always find somewhere else." Click. She hung up. I didn't explode. That's what she expected. Shock. Tears. Maybe a desperate phone call to my father. Instead, I set my phone down on the kitchen counter and poured myself a glass of water. Cold. Steady. Because this wasn't new. It wasn't even surprising. It was just the next move in a pattern that had started 15 years ago. My mother died when I was 17. Cancer. Quick. Brutal. The kind that leaves a house feeling hollow. For 2 years it was just my dad and me. Quiet dinners. Awkward grief. Trying. Then Victoria arrived. Polished. Poised. Effortlessly sympathetic. She didn't replace my mother loudly. She did it gradually. First, she rearranged the living room. Then she donated my mother's clothes to someone who could use them. Then she replaced family photos with newer ones. Photos that didn't include me. Subtle displacement. That's how it began. When they married, I was 19. Legally an adult. Emotionally still surviving. Victoria never yelled at me. She never needed to. She moved me. My bedroom became Paige's temporary study space. Temporary turned permanent. I was relocated to the smaller guest room. Then came holidays where I wasn't consulted. Vacations I wasn't invited to. Family photos where I stood slightly off-center. Paige, her daughter, was elevated. I was minimized. And because I didn't fight, because I didn't scream, Victoria made a mistake. She thought silence meant weakness. She didn't understand that invisibility can be training. By the time I was 25, I had perfected it. Smile when spoken to. Decline confrontation. Observe everything. Invisibility became my superpower. While Victoria curated image, I curated data. While she networked, I studied. While she performed belonging, I built independence. But she never noticed. Because I never announced it. The beach house was different. That wasn't inherited. That wasn't my father's. That wasn't shared. That was mine. Sullivan's Island. Ocean facing. Clean white lines and hurricane glass. Purchased quietly. Registered carefully. A place where I could breathe without editing myself. And now, at 11:47 p.m., Victoria had decided it was hers too. No discussion. No request. Just occupation. The next morning they arrived at 9:12 a.m. 2 SUVs. Boxes already labeled. Paige walked in first, sunglasses perched on her head like she was stepping into a resort she'd booked. Victoria followed, scanning the entryway like an inspector. "Oh, this will work perfectly," she said. "Work for what?" "For them." I stood in the foyer calm. "You're early," I said evenly. Victoria smiled, that polished smile she reserves for social events and subtle victories. "Well, we didn't want to inconvenience you." "Inconvenience?" She walked past me toward the staircase. "I told Paige she could take the master. The balcony view is simply wasted otherwise." I let her talk. Let her unpack. Let her order movers to carry my furniture down the hall. Every movement was documentation. Every sentence was confirmation. Because this wasn't entitlement in isolation. This was escalation. At one point, Paige looked at me and said, "You don't mind, right? I mean, it's just a room." Just a room. That's what my childhood bedroom was too. Just a room. I smiled. "No," I said softly. "I don't mind." Victoria paused. Studied me. Waiting for resistance. It didn't come. She relaxed. That was her second mistake. That afternoon, she hosted what she called a sunset welcome. Champagne on the deck. 3 neighbors invited. Casual introductions. "This is Bonnie," she said lightly. She's staying with us for a bit. Staying with us. In my house. I watched the neighbors' faces flicker with confusion, but they smiled politely. Victoria thrives in rooms where no one wants to cause discomfort. She mistook politeness for endorsement. That night, after they fell asleep in the master bedroom, I sat alone on the porch. The ocean was steady, unbothered. Patterns repeat until someone interrupts them. At 17, I didn't have power. At 19, I didn't have leverage. But at 32, I had both. Victoria believed this was another quiet takeover. Another seamless replacement. Another chapter where I adjusted. She didn't understand something fundamental. I wasn't preparing guest towels. I wasn't reorganizing closets. I was preparing documentation. Because when someone walks into your home and claims it without permission, it isn't just entitlement. It's evidence. The next morning, Victoria asked sweetly, "Will you help us get settled?" I smiled. "Of course," I said. "I'll prepare everything." She looked satisfied. Victorious. She thought preparation meant hospitality. She didn't realize preparation can also mean prosecution. And for the first time in 15 years, I wasn't being displaced. I was building a case. Victoria thought she understood me. Quiet, agreeable, slightly withdrawn. What she never understood was that silence is often camouflage. Because while she was curating appearances, I was building something she couldn't see. A life she never thought to ask about. I have a finance degree. Not the decorative kind. The kind that requires obsession with detail. After graduation, I didn't stay local. I left. I worked. I learned. I calculated risk like other people calculate weather. By 32, I was a senior consultant. $340,000 a year. Performance bonuses invested, not spent. Equity positions. Real estate syndications. Long-term index strategies. Quiet compounding. My net worth as of last quarter? $5.2 million. No inheritance. No family assistance. Just discipline. And invisibility. The Sullivan's Island beach house costs $4.8 million. Oceanfront. Private access. Registered under a holding structure designed for discretion. No announcement. No celebratory dinner. I signed a loan. That was intentional. Because wealth is safest when it's quiet. And my family never asked enough questions to notice. Marcus noticed. Marcus has been my attorney for 6 years. Strategic. Unimpressed by theatrics. Unemotional about numbers. He called 3 days after Victoria moved in. "I need you to sit down," he said. "That's never casual." "What did you find?" I asked. Silence. Then, "There's a transfer deed filed on the Mount Pleasant property. My father's house. The house I grew up in." "I didn't authorize anything," I said immediately. "You didn't," Marcus replied. "But someone did." The deed had been transferred into an LLC. The LLC was registered under Victoria's maiden name. Filed 6 months ago. I felt something shift in my chest. Not panic. Recognition. Pattern. "Was it signed?" I asked. "Yes." "By my father?" "That's what it says." Marcus paused. "And Bonnie, the signature doesn't match prior filings." Forgery. The word hung in the air without being spoken. It didn't stop there. Marcus had pulled additional records. $380,000 withdrawn from my father's IRA over 18 months. Structured transfers. Below reporting thresholds. $47,000 on a credit card my father didn't know existed. Opened using his social security number. And then the final piece. A hidden trust account. $215,000 siphoned gradually from joint funds. Total exposure so far? $1,842,000. This wasn't family tension. This wasn't a disagreement over space. This was felony-level fraud. I sat in silence while Marcus finished outlining the timeline. Dates. Registrations. Signatures. The LLC formation matched the same month Victoria began encouraging my father to downsize. Encouraging. The word felt poisonous now. "She's positioning assets," Marcus said calmly. "And she's doing it quietly." Quietly. Like she always had. I drove to Mount Pleasant that evening. My father was in the kitchen when I arrived. Older than I remembered. Slower. Victoria wasn't home. Convenient. We walked to the beach at dawn the next morning. He still wakes early. That hasn't changed. I handed him a folder. He opened it. Page 1, the deed. Page 2, the LLC registration. Page 3, bank records. Page 4, a preliminary forensic signature analysis. Highest probability of forgery. He stared at the signature for a long time. That's not mine, he said finally. Not angry. Not shocked. Certain. I didn't sign this. The wind moved between us. 17 years of quiet rearrangements suddenly reframed. Dad, I said gently, did you authorize any of this? No. The word was steady. And with that, the foundation shifted. He signed an affidavit that morning. Statement of non-authorization. Notarized. Documented. The first crack in Victoria's constructed reality. But it wasn't the only one. Marcus called again 2 days later. There's more, he said. A woman named Helen Briggs had contacted the firm. Victoria's first husband. Divorced in 2009. $190,000 missing during their marriage. Similar structure. LLC under a variation of her maiden name. Unauthorized withdrawals. The pattern was identical. Same method. Same sophistication. Same confidence. This wasn't new behavior. It was refined behavior. That's when everything crystallized. The bedroom takeovers. The emotional displacement. The slow asset repositioning. Victoria didn't just remove people from rooms. She removed them from ownership. My father wasn't her first attempt. He was her most successful one. Until now. Marcus laid out the options clearly. We can go to the police immediately, he said. Fraud. Forgery. Identity theft. It would be swift. Messy. Public. Or, we can wait. 84 days until the Low Country Bar Association Gala. Victoria was being honored as Philanthropist of the Year. 200 elite attendees. Judges. Attorneys. Donors. Public validation. Public stage. We present everything there, Marcus said calmly. Legally. Strategically. With documentation. I didn't hesitate. The stage, I replied. Because this was never just about money. It was about narrative. For 15 years, Victoria curated image. Controlled rooms. Positioned herself as benefactor. Rescuer. Elegant solution. She believed control lived in silence. She didn't realize silence can also collect evidence. 84 days. She would continue sleeping in my master bedroom. Continue hosting sunset socials. Continue believing she had secured the board. And I would let her. Because comfort makes criminals careless. And this time, I wasn't being displaced. I was preparing the spotlight. The Low Country Bar Association Gala was everything Victoria loved. Crystal chandeliers. Champagne towers. Polished marble floors reflecting soft gold light. It was the kind of room built for applause. And Victoria thrived on applause. She arrived in a deep emerald gown, tailored to perfection. Diamonds rested at her collarbone, subtle enough to suggest taste, expensive enough to signal power. People turned when she walked in. They always did. She smiled the way she always smiled, warm, controlled, practiced. The smile of a woman who believed she owned the narrative. I arrived 15 minutes later. Black silk. Simple cut. No statement jewelry. I wasn't there to be seen. I was there to be heard. Marcus stood near the back of the ballroom, reviewing a slim leather portfolio. Calm. Unbothered. Almost bored. That was his tell. Everything was ready. My father sat 2 tables from the stage. Navy suit. Shoulders slightly hunched. He looked smaller than I remembered, but steadier than he had in weeks. He knew what was coming. Victoria didn't. When her name was announced, Philanthropist of the Year, the applause was immediate and enthusiastic. She rose slowly, hand pressed lightly to her chest in rehearsed humility. A pause for effect. A gracious nod. Then she approached the podium. I am deeply honored, she began, voice smooth as silk. Service has always been at the heart of who I am. Of course it has. Her speech was flawless. Carefully paced. Emotion placed exactly where it needed to be. Mentorship. Community. Integrity. That word almost made me laugh. Integrity. Halfway through her closing remarks, Marcus moved. Not rushed. Not dramatic. He simply approached the event coordinator and handed her a folder. A quiet exchange. A shift in posture. Confusion flickered behind the coordinator's eyes. Then she walked toward the stage. Victoria noticed. Her sentence faltered just slightly. The coordinator leaned in and whispered something. Victoria's smile froze. Just for a fraction of a second. But I saw it. Ladies and gentlemen, the coordinator said carefully, stepping to the podium. We've received urgent documentation that requires immediate clarification before this award can formally be presented. The room shifted. It wasn't loud. It was subtle. The way conversation stopped mid-breath. Victoria let out a soft, controlled laugh. I'm sure this is simply a misunderstanding. Marcus stepped forward. Unfortunately, he said evenly, it isn't. The ballroom screens flickered to life. Page 1, the forged deed. Highlighted signature comparison. Page 2, the LLC registration under Victoria's maiden name. Page 3, bank withdrawals, structured transfers. Page 4, forensic analysis summary. Probability of signature forgery. Hi. There are moments when power leaves a person's body. You can see it. Victoria's posture changed first. Her shoulders tightened. Her chin lifted higher, defensive, not confident. That's absurd, she said quickly. Too quickly. This is defamatory. My father stood. The movement was small, but it carried weight. That is not my signature, he said clearly. No tremor. No hesitation. Silence followed. Heavy. Complete. Then came the final document. Affidavit of non-authorization. Signed. Notarized. Dated. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. These documents, he said calmly, have also been submitted to the appropriate authorities for review. That was the pivot. Not accusation. Not drama. Procedure. Legality. Finality. Victoria's composure began to fracture. You're doing this because you're jealous, she snapped, looking directly at me now. You've always resented me. There it was. Projection. I stepped forward for the first time. My heels echoed softly against marble. I didn't resent you, I said evenly. I underestimated you. A murmur rippled through the room. You displaced people quietly, I continued. You repositioned assets quietly. You controlled narratives quietly. I paused. But you forgot something. Her jaw tightened. You can't forge silence. Security had already moved closer to the stage. Not aggressively, but intentionally. The gala board members were whispering urgently. Phones were out. Not for photos. For damage control. Victoria looked around the room, searching for alignment, for support. For someone to interrupt this. No one did. Because documentation speaks louder than charm. And then something shifted in her expression. Not anger. Not outrage. Calculation. She was searching for a way out. Technicality. A distraction. But there wasn't one. Marcus had timed this perfectly. Public stage. Verified evidence. Immediate legal filing. No space to rewrite the story. This isn't over, she said finally, voice low, controlled again but thinner now. No, Marcus replied calmly. It's beginning. Security stepped forward gently. Not handcuffs. Not spectacle. Just quiet removal from the podium. The award was never presented. The ballroom felt different after she exited. Lighter. But not celebratory. More like a storm had passed and left debris behind. My father sat slowly. He didn't look at me right away. When he did, there was something new in his eyes. Not guilt. Not pride. Clarity. I should have seen it, he said quietly. You trusted, I replied. That's not a crime. Forgery is. Fraud is. Silence when weaponized is. As guests began to disperse, conversations resumed in hushed tones. Reputations were recalculating in real time. Victoria had spent 15 years constructing an image. It unraveled in 14 minutes. Not because I shouted. Not because I attacked. But because I waited. Collected. Documented. And chose the right room. The right moment. The right light. Because some people believe power lives in controlling the stage. They forget. The spotlight doesn't belong to the performer. It belongs to whoever controls the switch. And that night, I flipped it. The morning after the gala felt unnaturally quiet. No champagne glasses. No applause. No curated lighting. Just sunlight through my kitchen windows and the steady hum of the ocean beyond the glass. Exposure is loud in the moment. Aftermath is quiet. And quiet is where truth settles. By 9 a.m. the calls began. Board members. Attorneys. One very cautious journalist requesting clarification. Marcus handled all of it. Formal statements. Documentation confirmations. Notification that a criminal investigation had officially opened. Forgery. Financial fraud. Identity theft. 3 charges that carry weight when spoken calmly. Victoria was released that night pending investigation. But release doesn't mean relief. Not when passports are flagged. Not when accounts are frozen. Not when forensic accountants are tracing every dollar. Because once you pull one thread in a financial crime, you rarely find only one knot. The Mount Pleasant house transfer was voided within 48 hours. Emergency injunction. Asset freeze on the LLC. The property returned to my father's name. Clean. Legally. Watching him sign the reinstatement paperwork felt different than watching him sign the affidavit. The first signature was defense. The second was reclamation. He held the pen longer than necessary. I didn't want to believe it, he admitted quietly. I know, I said. Trust doesn't break all at once. It erodes. Softly. Gradually. Until one day you realize the ground beneath you isn't solid anymore. The deeper investigation uncovered more. 2 additional structured accounts. A secondary LLC registered out of state. Consulting fees paid to shell entities that led straight back to her. Total confirmed exposure climbed past 2.3 million. And that was just what they could document quickly. Patterns like hers don't begin suddenly. They evolve. They refine. They test boundaries until no one pushes back. Until someone does. The philanthropic award was rescinded publicly. The Low Country Bar Association issued a formal statement emphasizing ethical accountability. Donations connected to her foundation were suspended pending review. Invitations disappeared. Committees dissolved quietly. Rooms that once opened for her closed without explanation. Reputation once fractured doesn't shatter loudly. It thins. People return calls slower. Smiles fade faster. Doors require appointments. Victoria called me 3 days later. Private number. I almost didn't answer. Almost. Was humiliating me necessary? She asked. No greeting. No apology. Just accusation wrapped in composure. It wasn't about humiliation, I said evenly. It was about documentation. A pause. You could have handled this privately. I let that sit for a moment. You handled everything privately, I replied. That's how we got here. Silence. For the first time in 15 years she didn't have a pivot. No charm. No redirection. No subtle emotional leverage. Just consequences. I built that life, she said finally. Softer now. Almost reflective. No, I answered calmly. You positioned yourself inside it. There's a difference. Building requires foundation. Positioning requires opportunity. She had confused access with ownership, influence with entitlement, control with permanence. And permanence is fragile when it's built on forged paper. My father moved out of the Mount Pleasant house a month later. Not because he had to, because he wanted to. We need a reset, he said. That word mattered. He rented a smaller place near the marina. Simpler. Less performative. I helped him pack. We found old photographs in the attic. Beach vacations. Birthday cakes. My mother's handwriting on the back of one frame. Time folds strangely when you're sorting through it. I'm sorry, he said at one point. For what? For not protecting you from her. I shook my head. You weren't supposed to protect me forever, I said gently. Just long enough. And maybe he had. Maybe this was simply the moment the protection shifted directions. Legal proceedings take time. There will be depositions, court dates, negotiations, possibly a plea. Marcus believes the evidence is overwhelming. I believe patterns always reveal themselves eventually, not because truth is loud, but because deception requires constant maintenance. And maintenance gets exhausting. People assume revenge feels triumphant. Doesn't. Feels still. Measured. Balanced. There was no celebration dinner. No victory toast. Just equilibrium returning to a space that had been tilted for years. I still wake early. Still review investment reports with coffee in hand. Still walk the beach alone some mornings. But something internal has shifted. Not hardness. Clarity. Boundaries drawn without apology. Documentation kept without hesitation. Trust given carefully, not blindly. Victoria's trial date hasn't been set yet. Her attorneys are negotiating. Mitigation. Character references. Reputation rehabilitation strategies. It's almost impressive, the instinct to manage optics even now. But optics don't override affidavits. And charm doesn't invalidate bank records. The system moves slowly. But it moves. Last week, I stood in the master bedroom of the Sullivan's Island house. The one she once treated like a prize she had secured. The room felt different now. Not reclaimed. It was never taken. Just clarified. I opened the windows and let the ocean air move freely through the space. Control is an illusion when it's built on manipulation. Real power is quiet. It doesn't need to displace anyone to exist. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need validation. It simply stands. Victoria believed the stage belonged to her. She curated the lighting, directed the narrative, selected the audience. But she forgot something critical. A stage is just a platform. The foundation underneath it matters more. And when the foundation is forged, it collapses. Not dramatically, not theatrically, but inevitably. And when it does, what remains isn't revenge. It's accountability. And that lasts. The verdict came on a Wednesday morning. No dramatic music. No packed courthouse steps. Just fluorescent lighting, polished wood benches, and the quiet shuffle of legal paperwork. Justice rarely feels cinematic. Feels procedural. Measured. Final. Victoria sat at the defense table in a navy suit that was meant to signal restraint. Minimal jewelry. Hair pulled back. Composed. She still understood presentation. Some habits don't disappear even when the illusion does. The prosecution didn't need theatrics. They had documentation. Forensic signature analysis. Structured withdrawal records. Shell LLC filings. Digital timestamps. Affidavits. Patterns. Patterns are powerful in court. Because one mistake can be argued. A pattern cannot. She didn't take the stand. Her attorneys advised against it. Too many variables. Too many inconsistencies that could unravel under cross-examination. Instead, they pursued negotiation. Reduced sentence in exchange for financial restitution, and a guilty plea to multiple felony counts. Fraud, forgery, and identity theft. Hearing the words spoken formally, guilty on all counts, didn't feel explosive. Felt still. Like something heavy finally being set down. The judge was deliberate. Measured. He referenced breach of trust. Premeditation. Calculated deception over an extended period of time. He noted the psychological damage as much as the financial harm. Then came sentencing. 18 months of incarceration. 5 years of supervised probation. Full financial restitution. Permanent disqualification from serving on nonprofit boards or holding fiduciary roles. A professional exile. Not dramatic, but decisive. Victoria nodded once as the sentence was read. No tears. No collapse. Just a subtle tightening of her jaw. Even now, she was managing optics. My father sat beside me. He didn't speak during the hearing. But when it ended, he exhaled in a way that sounded like years leaving his body. I kept thinking I missed something, he said quietly. You trusted someone, I replied. That isn't blindness. It's human. And humanity shouldn't require punishment. Outside the courthouse, there were no reporters waiting for me. The story had already cycled through its news window. Public attention moves fast. Consequences move slower. And slower is more permanent. Marcus shook my hand once. It's over, he said. No, I answered gently. It's complete. There's a difference. Over implies something vanished. Complete means it ran its course. Restitution payments began within 60 days. Liquidated assets. Property sales. Account seizures. The numbers transferred back felt less important than what they represented. Restoration. Correction. Closure. Money is measurable. Trust isn't. But accountability bridges the gap. My father and I rebuilt something quietly. Not through grand conversations. Not through dramatic apologies. Through consistency. Sunday breakfasts. Investment discussions. Shared documents reviewed transparently. Trust doesn't return all at once. It reappears in small, repeatable actions. Like showing up. Like listening. Like asking instead of assuming. The Sullivan's Island house feels different now. Not because it changed. Because I did. I walk through it without tension in my shoulders. I sleep without replaying conversations in my head. I no longer scan rooms for subtle repositioning. Peace is subtle. It doesn't announce itself. It settles. Victoria wrote once from prison. A single-page letter. No denial. No apology. Just a carefully worded explanation about pressure and misunderstood intentions. I read it once. Then filed it. Closure doesn't require confrontation. Sometimes it requires distance. People still ask me if exposing her publicly was necessary. The answer is simple. Yes, because silence protects patterns. Documentation interrupts them. Had it remained private, it would have remained deniable. Public accountability ensures permanence. And permanence matters. I've thought often about power since all of this ended. Victoria believed power lived in control. In positioning. In shaping perception. But that's fragile power. Real power is quieter. It's financial literacy, legal awareness, emotional regulation. It's the ability to wait without reacting, to document without announcing, to act without rage. Restraint is underestimated, but restraint builds leverage. There was no celebration dinner after the sentencing. No champagne. No dramatic closure scene. Just dinner at home. Ocean air drifting through open windows. My father at the table across from me. 2 plates. 2 glasses of water. Normal. And normal felt extraordinary. I'm proud of you, he said at one point. The words landed differently now. Not performative. Not obligatory. Earned. I'm proud of you too, I replied. Because growth isn't one-sided. He faced what he didn't want to see. He signed the affidavit. He chose truth over comfort. That matters. Financially, life continues as it always has. Investments compound. Properties appreciate. Markets fluctuate. But emotionally, something stabilized. I don't confuse access with ownership anymore. I don't mistake charm for character. And I don't ignore subtle red flags to preserve temporary peace. Peace built on avoidance isn't peace. It's postponement. The master bedroom, the one she once treated like a symbolic victory, now feels almost irrelevant. It's just a room. Walls. Windows. Light. Control over space was never the real issue. Control over narrative was. And that narrative no longer belongs to her. It belongs to truth. Documented. Verified. Closed. The trial ended. The sentence was delivered. Restitution is in motion. Reputation recalibrated. But the most important shift isn't legal. It's internal. I no longer feel the need to prove stability. I simply live it. Quietly. Consistently. Without spectacle. Because the greatest shift wasn't watching her lose control. It was realizing I never needed to fight for it. I already had it. And this time, it's permanent.